How do I turn this silly thing on?
That's my dad.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Central Oregon. My name is Pat Cayley, and I'll be your worship leader today. We are an inclusive community that affirms the mind, heart, and body in our search for truth and meaning. Here you will find both comfort and challenge in your spiritual journey. Whatever your age, income, or the color of your skin, you are welcome here. Whatever your sexual orientation, gender identity, or life story, you are welcome here. If you are full of joy today, or if your heart is hurting, you are welcome here. Our opening song today is Meditation on Breathing by Sarah Dan Jones.
I don't know this one.
breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, I breathe out. Breathe in, I breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Good morning. I'm Amy Brock, Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth. Our opening words this morning are by Sharon Wiley. They are entitled, "You Are Never Alone." It is okay to be tired of change. It is okay to be tired of everything different. Okay to feel weary of resiliency and wholeness and learning and growth. And okay to simply yearn for rest. It is okay to be grouchy and unsatisfied and all of the ordinary human ways of being that we are. Let this morning be a reminder that you are loved. Let our time together soothe what is restless in you. May you be comforted in knowing that whatever you are feeling today and other days, you are not alone. You are never alone. Come and let us worship together. Our chalice lighting words this morning are by Richard S. Gilbert. I chose these words because they reminded me of author and illustrator Eric Carle, who died this week at the age of 91. We've been exploring story this month, and some of you know that Eric Carle's story about the very hungry caterpillar is one of my very favorite stories. We light this chalice to remember that life is always unfinished business. In the midst of the whirling day and the hectic rush to be doing, in the frantic pace of life, pause here for a moment. Catch your breath and relax your body. Loosen your grip on life. Consider that our lives are always unfinished business. Imagine that the picture of our being is never complete. Allow your life to be a work in progress, and do not hurry to mold the masterpiece. Do not rush to finish the picture. Do not be impatient to complete the drawing. From beckoning birth to dawning death, we are all in process, and always there is more to be done. Do not let the incompleteness weigh on your spirit. Do not despair that imperfection might mark your everyday. Do not fear that we are still in the making. Let us instead be grateful that the world is still to be created. Let us give thanks that we can be more than we are. Let us celebrate the power of the incomplete, for life is always unfinished business.
Good morning. I'm Chayla Sloper, the Congregational Life Facilitator, and I have today's announcements. First, a very warm welcome, especially since we have 90-degree temperatures coming this week. But for today, a warm welcome for all who have gathered this morning, and especially those who are new to our congregation and just maybe visiting us for the first or second time. We invite you to let us know that you're with us today during Joys and Sorrows. Let us know where you're checking in from, or you can fill out our virtual visitor form that's available in the chat window. And then you can sign up for our weekly communications that we call the ACE, the All Congregational Email. So this last week's ACE had a really important announcement from the COVID-19 task force that has been working really hard to stay current with CDC and OHA guidelines. And they have been responding and working out how we can begin to cautiously and with consideration begin to meet together. So we have two exciting opportunities. And so listen closely. Next Sunday will be our flower sharing ritual, and Reverend Scott invites us to the back patio between noon and 1. Bring a flower if you have one to share, but there will be flowers also that we can receive from the congregation, from one another. This has been a long-standing ritual where we express our diversity and also just the beauty of all of these different colors and shapes within our world, within our congregation. So that'll be on the back patio. Now, because there will also be a children's activity Sunday afternoon, we are asking that when children are present, that we continue to wear a mask. So have your mask in hand and then have it on your face, because when children who have not been vaccinated are in the mix, we want to extend the warmest care and protection for them. There will also be this Wednesday's contemplative service at 7:30. We've been doing that only on Zoom. Reverend Scott is going to have the multi-platform approach. We'll be meeting on the back patio at 7:30. We'll be socially distanced. Please have your mask in hand. They might have to go on the face. And there will also be a Zoom sign in as well for those that either don't want to come out to the church or just want to connect via Zoom. So do read the guidelines that the COVID-19 task force has prepared for. So this is really important going forward, because as we know, we're not going to be going back to how things were. We're going to be creating this new way together. And so with gratitude and consideration, that's how we'll go forward. So a couple of other things that are happening this week. Thursday is the blood drive. There are still some spaces open for donors. So the link is in the ACE if you are available to give blood on Thursday. Also, the Numero Uno book group is meeting this Wednesday at 2 p.m. They welcome new participants. They're currently reading is it called All the Americans? I'm forgetting. It's in the ACE. Check the ACE. Always a great resource to know what's happening. Also next Monday, the Women's Connections will have a speaker talking about the basics of birding. That'll be on Zoom, and that'll be at 6:30 next Monday, June 7th. So a couple of other down the road opportunities, but want to make sure that we have them all within our sites. Firstly, Art on the Patio will be on Saturday, June 26th, and submissions are still welcome. Quilters are welcome to submit their works, even if you wouldn't be selling, but just to show what your wonderful artistic expressions have resulted in. So quilters, artists, crafters, they're still looking for submissions, and they'd like to have those submitted by June 7th. Also, there will be an online youth camp. It's called the Univalerian University of Wizarding Arts. That's going to be on the week that flanks between June and July, June 28th to I have it here, July something. But if your child ages 5 to 13 would like to attend, they need to be registered in our RE program first. So those registrations have to be done by June 13th. So I think that is what I have to share. Don't forget contemplative worship on the patio and Zoom this Wednesday at 7:30. And then next Sunday, the flower sharing ritual between noon and 1, again on the back patio. So today being the last Sunday of the month, we will have an invitation for our greater community collection, and that will be given by Anastasia Compton. But before I pass you on to Anastasia's good graces, blessings on your day.
Hi, my name is Anastasia Compton, and I'm a member of the Environmental Justice Team, which is one of several projects that falls under the Social Justice Committee. Social justice as part of our congregational life is not a static entity. It lives and grows as needs and ideas present themselves. One of our longest running projects, our commitment to prepare dinners at the Bethlehem Inn, is still going strong since 2008. And I know that many of you have been involved with that. Our newest social justice project, Nourish, started just this year, and among other activities has been collecting healthy food and produce to donate to various food distribution outlets. Both of these programs make a difference by feeding people, and in so doing, embody our first principle of affirming the inherent dignity and worth of every person. Each represents a different creative solution to the challenge of economic and food insecurity in our community. The support that this congregation gives social justice not only continues the projects that you're familiar with and read about in the ACE, it also creates this environment in which new projects can grow and flourish. To help those interested in starting a new group, a recently formed congregational support team within the Social Justice Steering Committee has drawn up steps for proposing and chartering a new project. You can start with the first step by going to the Social Justice tab on the UUFCO website, click on Social Justice Overview, and then on Contact Social Justice. So many of these projects intersect and support each other. Our environmental team has been thrilled to see Nourish focus on gardening and produce because local gardens and food systems also have a crucial role to play in addressing the climate crisis. The climate crisis, in turn, intersects with our broken immigration system. The work done by groups in this congregation, which are designed to help children succeed in our schools, also has the potential to impact families who are touched by housing insecurity or food insecurity, who are marginalized by economic and racial inequalities. So while we take this moment to ask for your offering this month to support social justice work, we also want to take a moment to invite your ideas, your insights, and your creativity. If you see a need in the community or in our world, put your head together with a few other people and then tell the Social Justice Committee what you'd like to do to address it. If you're interested in one of the existing programs, it's a great time to jump in. And of course, thank you for donating to the Greater Community Collection this month in support of social justice at UUFCO.
As we mentioned already this morning, today is the last day in our theme of story. One thing that's true of all stories is that they have a beginning and an ending. Well, it's sort of like a beginning and ending. It's also sort of like a wheel, kind of like a cycle that goes around and around and around. Did you know that maybe you've heard about the water cycle in science class, or the plant cycle, or maybe the life cycle? Did you know that all things have cycles? And within those cycles, there are beginnings and endings of stories. That's kind of what we're talking about today. Did you know that your feelings move in cycles too? Yeah, maybe you've been really sad or really mad before. I have. And I wonder if you stayed really sad or really mad, or if those things shifted or changed. Hmm. When I have feelings, they don't usually stay forever. They kind of come and go, kind of like a story with a beginning and with a beginning and ending, or a cycle that goes around and around. Yeah. Like most cycles, we don't always know when they'll come and go. So, what can we do while we wait for them to come and go? Well, we can feel them in our bodies. Yeah. When we learn about the water cycle, we know that water evaporates from the earth and it goes up into the clouds, and the clouds kind of hold the water droplets for a while. And when we have feelings that come and go in our body, we can kind of hold them in the same sort of way, just like the clouds hold those water droplets. And the same thing is kind of like plants. When we plant seeds into the ground holds our seeds for a little while until they grow into a plant, kind of like this one. Yeah, holds them, feels them, just like we feel our feelings. And eventually, after we felt our feelings for a little while, they don't stay forever. They move on so that new feelings can come, so that we can start new stories and we can have new beginnings and endings. Did you know that your breath can help you feel your feelings? Yeah, we have cycles of our breathing. We breathe in and we breathe out. There's a beginning and an ending, but it keeps going around and around too. For example, our breath might start moving really, really fast when we get really excited or worried about something. And our breath might move kind of slow if we're kind of tired. It's sort of like, I like to think about breathing sort of like we think about bunnies and turtles sometimes. So bunnies move really, really fast and turtles move really, really slow. And so when we notice that our breath is moving really, really fast, kind of like a bunny, we might think about a turtle and use that to help us slow our breath down. So let's practice it together. I want you to take a moment to think about how your breath is moving in your body right now. Is it moving fast like a bunny, or is it moving slow like a turtle? If you notice that your breath is moving really fast like a bunny, see if you can breathe out really, really slowly with the turtle breath. Let's try it together. And if you notice that your breath is moving really slow, see if you can take some short sniffs, kind of like a bunny. You might try both to see what feels best in your body right now. Long exhales or short inhales. As our breath speeds up or slows down, we might feel more energized and encouraged, or we might feel more focused and able to pay attention so that we can listen better to one another. Our breathing doesn't change our feelings, but it does help us to understand them a little better. It helps us to know what story is really happening in our bodies when we feel those feelings. Yeah. Thanks for exploring breathing and feelings with me today. Our time together ends, but you can practice breathing anytime that you want to. Let's all say the Children's Covenant. In this place, I am kind. In this place, I am loving. In this place, I am a friend to the earth and all animals and people. In this place, I am loved.
Thanks, Amy. You may be full of joy this morning, or you may be carrying a heavy burden. This is a time when we have an opportunity to share what is in our hearts and to connect with the community that is gathered and make a space where that can all be okay. The chat box is now open for sharing joys and sorrows.
And while you share your joys and sorrows, I decided I would play a piece of Mendelssohn by the composer Mendelssohn called Consolation. And I know that most of us have lost loved ones over the past couple of years. So perhaps we could take this time to remember them, remember the joys and the sorrows of those relationships.
Our speaker today is Katie Diez. Katie lives in Sisters and is co-founder of Comfort Seeds, an initiative that uses gardening to help kids who have lost loved ones heal. She's currently writing a Comfort Seeds children's book in collaboration with Oregon-based illustrator Manda Severin. On the Comfort Seeds website, she introduces herself by saying she is a gardener, a wife, a mom of 2 strong and independent daughters, and a pediatric occupational therapist by trade. Today she is going to share with us the story of Comfort Seeds. Please welcome Katie Diez.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I'm honored to be here and to share my story with you all. Mary Oliver wrote in her poem, "Sometimes," that instructions for living a life are to pay attention, to be astonished, and to tell about it. She also said in her poem, "Yes, no, to pay attention is our endless and proper work." This is simple, but not easy. And there's so much happening in our day-to-day lives that has potential to take root into a beautiful story, but it does take, I think it takes some making that choice to really direct our attention to those nuances in our lives. And honestly, that can be hard, especially when we have so much demanding our attention. But I believe that when that moment of tuning in and attending comes, there is the potential for something magical to happen. So as we tend and tell our stories, that curiosity can grow for the teller, but I also believe it's for the listener. And it has the potential to take on a life of its own. So I am honored and happy to tell you this story that I have to share today. I wanted to first invite us all to do a brief meditation of attention, as Mary Oliver asks us to do. So if you could just take a deep breath with me right now and soften your gaze. And I invite you to just notice 5 things you can see. Look around you and just become aware of your environment. Pick out something that maybe you don't usually notice in your room or out your window. And now let's see if you can notice 4 things that you can feel. Maybe it's something that you're sitting on, texture of your clothing, or the temperature on your skin. See now if you can notice 3 things that you can hear, maybe in your immediate environment in the room that you're in, or if you can stretch that hearing beyond the room. Now see if you can notice 2 things that you can smell. It might be a little trickier. Maybe bring your attention to scents you usually filter out. They could be pleasant or they can be unpleasant. Maybe there's still remnants of your coffee that you brewed this morning or something you made for breakfast. And then finally, notice 1 thing you can taste. Maybe you have a drink in front of you. You can take a sip or a drink of that, or just notice that current taste in your mouth. Please take another deep breath with me. And I invite you to listen to my story. I'm going to share my screen so you don't have to look at the white background behind me, and you can enjoy some of the art that my dear friend Manda created that will someday be in our book. There's also some pictures to share. So this is a picture of my dad, Bill, and my two daughters, Iris and Grace. This picture was taken, maybe a couple of years before my dad passed away from cancer. That was back in 2006. Our daughters are now 21 next week and 18. So it's been a while since he died. And shortly after he died, I offered to take his shirts. And I promised I would do something meaningful with them someday. So I packaged them up in a Rubbermaid box and put them away. And they stayed in the box for 10 years. So we moved and they came with us to Sisters from Portland. And I just kind of set them aside. I just wasn't ready to do anything. With the 10-year anniversary of my dad's passing, I decided, okay, it's time. It's time to do something with them. This was in 2016. So I took his shirts out and shook them out and decided to make quilts. I am not a quilter. I still am not a quilter. And, but I get an idea in my head and I decide I'm gonna go for it. So I went to work, and lucky for me, I live in the quilting capital of the world, Sisters, Oregon, and I had plenty of help. So here I am sewing my quilts. The first thing that I had to do was cut my dad's shirts. That was not easy, because I knew they would never be whole again. And I had to come to terms with that, knowing that my experience of life and grief has changed me. So now it was time to transform those shirts and to have them be something that I could share. So as I cut his shirts, I noticed things. One very raw thing I noticed was, as I ironed the shirts, some of the smell of his body odor would waft up from the steam of the iron. That led to curiosity and questions and wondering, what was he doing that day when he was wearing that shirt? Was he nervous? Was that a work shirt? Was he at work? He was a mental health therapist, and he had a very hard and challenging job, but one that he loved and gave his heart and soul to. I also noticed little bits of food stuck to his shirt from times that he had just had food and eaten when he was alive. I noticed that he didn't wash his shirts very much because I kept finding more things on his shirts. I found a mint in a pocket and wondered, where was he eating? What restaurant was he eating at that day? I found a tissue. Did he have a cold? Had he been crying? I noticed a little pink heart, which gets me every time. I swore I wouldn't cry, but that my daughter had stuck to his shirt 10 years before. I noticed a tomato seed, and I thought about how he was a gardener and he loved fresh, ripe tomatoes. I flicked it off. And a few days later, I thought, could I have sprouted that seed? But I forgave myself for not thinking of it sooner and went on with my months. Actually, I took a few months off of working on the quilts and came back to it in the fall. I had a deadline that Christmas would be the time I would complete the quilts. When I came back to the quilts, I found another tomato seed and I had a second chance. So I put that tomato seed in a little dish of water. And I thought, well, we'll see. We'll see if it sprouts. It's been 10 years. A few days later, I came back and there was a little shoot coming out of that seed. I put it in a little dish of dirt with tweezers, hand trembling. And a few days after that, a little green shoot popped up out of the dirt. So I then knew that I was entrusted with the task of growing a tomato plant in the fall going into the winter. So I went to a special indoor growing store and found some special dirt and proceeded to grow this plant in the window. Then I realized I needed more light. So I borrowed a grow light from a friend and put it in our laundry room. And I kept tending it and sewing the quilts, and the plant just kept growing and growing and growing. So by the time Christmas rolled around, I had completed my quilts. And I gave them, this is my family. I gave them to my mom, my two sisters, and my brother, kept one for myself. I didn't tell them at first what these quilts were, but they quickly recognized the fabrics. And there were lots of tears and oohs and ahs, and it was a joy to give them to them. Then I told them this isn't the end of the story. And I pulled out a 3-foot tall tomato plant and told them the story of the seed that stuck to one of my dad's shirts. So here is the tomato plant and the quilt. I pulled it out onto the deck, so there's some snow in the background. That was on Christmas Day. You can see there's an itty bitty little tomato forming. First tomato right in time. So that tomato plant actually ended up growing to the ceiling of the laundry room. And by February, it had produced its first red ripe tomato. The day I noticed that tomato ripen was a day a dear, dear friend of ours had passed away from cancer. She was 37 years old, very young, taken so early. I later discovered the type of tomato, we're pretty positive what it is an early girl. Is that a convenience? Is it a coincidence? I don't know. So that plant produced 17 red ripe tomatoes. And as all wonderful, beautiful things, I did not want to let that thing pass. I was already starting to grieve the passing of the plant, and I knew it had to. I knew it had done its work. I knew that it was a beautiful experience. And then I realized that those tomatoes contained something that started the whole process: seeds. So I harvested the seeds. I took the seeds out of the tomatoes and dried them and saved them and decided that they needed to be shared. So I started gifting them to people who had also lost a loved one, or even just giving them to people who wanted to comfort someone. Sometimes when someone is grieving, we don't quite know what to do for that person. And so here's a tangible item that can be gifted. So these are my comfort seed packets. The thing is this story hasn't ended. It actually keeps going. 4 years later, 2020, I had shoulder surgery and was sitting on the couch feeling a little sorry for myself. And was scrolling Instagram. There is a man named Mike Viking who is the, oh gosh, he's the CEO of the Happiness Research Institute in Copenhagen, Denmark. They decided to curate a museum of happiness in Copenhagen and ask people if they would contribute something that brings them happiness. And I sat there kind of in my unhappy state thinking, well, what brings me happiness? What object brings me happiness? And then I realized my seeds. So I quickly wrote a paragraph about my seeds and sent it on and went to my PT appointment. I actually told my PT that I did it. I'm like, oh, that gave me a little boost. So about 3 weeks later, I got an email saying my seeds were accepted and would be displayed indefinitely in Copenhagen's Happiness Museum. I was so excited. Amanda, my friend, who is the artist who's done the art for this, and I were writing a children's book, and I finally had an ending. I didn't know how to end my book, so I finally had an ending. So those seeds are now displayed. This is the picture of the sign downtown Copenhagen. I thought the story was over. A few months later, I got word that they were opening the museum and that I had won their grand prize, a trip, all expenses paid trip to Copenhagen to tour the museum and the institute. Here's their little Instagram post about it. I haven't gone yet. As we know, things are shut down, but one day I get to go down there and see the seeds. But in the meantime, I have the children I work with help me plant the seeds every year. I have plants growing in the greenhouse now, and the kids plant the seeds. I tell them the story, and their little hands have something magical in them because my tomato seeds grow with almost 100%. What's the word? When you sow your seeds, about 100% of the seeds grow. So I tell the story, the kids plant them and grow them. The kids I work with are all in their own healing. A lot of them have had trauma. A lot of them have lost loved ones. And so I think it's important to have healing hands grow my seeds. So thank you for letting me share my story. I ask you to think about the kids that are helping me grow the seeds and to send some heart thoughts to them and to send some heart thoughts to my tomato plants as I grow another generation. And I hope that this inspires you to pay attention and be astonished and to tell about it. Thank you.
love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
A reminder that after our postlude, you're invited to join our virtual community coffee hour where we split into breakout rooms to discuss a question. The question today is, how do you keep the memory of someone or some time that was important to you alive in your life? Also, a reminder that at the end of our service today, there will be a slide on how you can make an offering to sustain and support the work of our church. Your donation this week will go to the Greater Community Collection and Social Justice. If you have a chalice in your home, please extinguish it now as we say our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
As we're in this state of transition where we're moving towards a new normal, may we take heart with these lines in a recently released crowdsourced poem about pandemic pain and hope titled, I Wake with Wonder. In this world of bad audio connections, I have learned to listen after such stillness. Nothing's the same. I rise on this new day out of bed like a miracle. I tie my own shoes. I linger with a full pot of Barry's Irish tea, each slurp, an act of contemplative prayer. I spend so many days watching my child grow. Mourning dove pretends to be an owl. A cardinal rides a slip of a limb up and down. What was simple is made extravagant. So I lift my gaze forward, slowly, to hike up, not give up, to sing out, not cry out, to like who I am, even when, especially when I stand alone. Return to my books to find support, to make the coffee, to watch the ducklings drop to water glory, following Mama Hen through fervent strains, to fill each day, not miss one, to see the world full on, to pace the house at midnight, watching the moon wax and wane, to live and love, to write, to work, to laugh, to share, to fight, to create a world of generosity, a world where we are inspired to help each other in every moment. As we go forward and navigate our days, may we have the courage to pay attention to it. Sit with the hard, the messy, and the beautiful. May we allow ourselves to experience all the emotions and body sensations that come with experiencing the fullness of life. And may we reignite that courage to share it and to tell about it. May it be so.
Thank you, Peggy. That's such a beautiful, beautiful piece by Dvorak. So thank you. It's really just lovely. I could float away